Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We are at the shore at the end of the dock. You can see the dock. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There's a boat. And there's the other shore. Kind of pretty. We're in one of the fingers of the Yacomico River in Virginia right now. This is where we're ported at for the moment on the Seven Bells and the Flying Monkey, which is our day cruiser sailboat, little Catalina 27. I'm going to go ahead and start labeling these videos the morning coffee because they're not really about, let me find my coffee, there it is. They're not really about how-tos on boat stuff, although, you know, we will always talk about little bits and pieces. One of the things I want to do on the Monkey, in fact, is something like that. Now, this is not actually a bowsprit. They're the forestay, which the head sail is attached to with that drum, because it's a roller furling, does not actually come out and sit on the extension there, so it's not really, you know, a bowsprit. It's kind of a bowsprit. It's a bumper. It's an anchor sprit, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a nudge bar. It has a support there, but that support is a structural support against down forces, not a chain keeping the bowsprit from collapsing upwards because of sail forces. The person who did this extended the bow pulpit to go out onto the nudge bar. And it's all well done, and I think I'm going to do that to the Flying Monkey first. I might do that to Seven Bells, I don't know. Seven Bells is already 34 feet, so I don't want to do a whole lot of that because that extends your overall length and puts you past the 35-foot cutoff of most marinas that I've experienced on this side of the country. There's often a fee that is a flat fee that doesn't go by the foot specifically, but goes by 0 to 35 feet. Some places it's 0 to 30, and then 30 to 35, and then 36 to 40. But a lot of times, 0 to 35. So, adding 2 feet to the Monkey isn't going to make any difference. She's still going to be under 30. And it gives you a lot more deck space to work with. The Catalina 27 is a very small boat in terms of your foredeck, and you don't have a lot of space to walk on anything to begin with when you're hanking on or adjusting your head sails. So a nudge bar or an anchor sprit like this is actually really useful just as a place to hold the anchors so you're not walking on them. And potentially, depending on how you build it, you could actually put your anchor windlass up there. If it was this big, it would be no problem with putting a ratcheting windlass up there on the Flying Monkey, because at 27 feet, the anchors she's running are much, much smaller than these. You know, these are unique anchors too. There's a bronze one on the outboard side that you can't really see very well, and then a traditional CQR, which is an actual Scottish CQR, which is a plow anchor, which I don't particularly care for. They do seem to hold fairly well if you get the angles right, especially in the Chesapeake Bay muddy bottoms. But not my favorite. You know, I have a Rockna on the Seven Bells on the Tartan 34, and that's a very nice anchor. But for reference, this is a huge anchor because this is a 50-foot boat that we're looking at right now. And that means it's going to weigh something like 8 times as much as the Flying Monkey Catalina 27. It's just boats follow something called variability and similarity. It's not similarity. Whatever. Square cube law is basically what it is. When you add 3 feet of length to the boat, you're adding the equivalent of 9 feet of mass, if you think about it that way. I'm not explaining it very well. I could do it on paper and I can feel it. And I'm also always trying to explain it in non-mathematical terms to people because people don't speak math very well. If you double the size of a boat from 12 to 24, you're going to square the mass. So you're going to go from basically 12 to 144 cubic somethings. And you're going to, in terms of stability and heel angle and other calculations, you're going to cube some other stuff that goes on. Doesn't matter. That's just, that's how it goes. So that is a really big anchor. I want to talk a little bit about the weather. You'll see there's some clouds up in the sky. We've had a uniquely dry, high pressure death summer up until this past week. And if you follow some of the regular weather guys on YouTube, like Ryan Hall is a good one, you know, they will explain the big patterns in the jet streams and the high pressures and the derechos and the niñas and the niños, and it's really interesting to look at, and you can see the patterns. Basically, all the weather has been above or below us, especially the tropical stuff has been staying way south of us, and what it's done is it's left us with this very notable low wind, high pressure alley that's been running through this part of the U.S. and east off into the ocean. And it's just been hot and sticky and no clouds. Not super humid. There's been humidity, but not, you know, death humidity. We've gotten a couple pop-up thunderstorms here and there. And then last week we had some systems come through, and they actually got us some rain and a little bit of relaxation. Right now, you know, the sun is breaking through the clouds for the morning. We're supposed to get a little more stuff going on. And you can see, if you look right in front of the camera, you'll see there's low clouds and high clouds. So you've got the humidity, the bay humidity causing the low clouds, and you've got the high clouds from whatever system is coming through. I need to catch up. I have not looked in the last 36 hours at that. But that's basically what's been driving the weather in the southern part of the Chesapeake Bay. Now, I am in the southern part. I'm very close to the mouth of the Potomac River. You know, I would say we're a little bit closer by sea miles to Norfolk than we are to Annapolis. Like, we're pretty far south, but we're still not all the way out in the open bay. We're still in the river estuary. And so, you know, the weather is really significantly different, just as little distance away as Annapolis and DC. It's been really interesting to watch, but all of the weather patterns have either gone up through the DC, Annapolis, Baltimore area, or south, mostly south of Norfolk, down almost into North Carolina and into North Carolina. So this has been a unique summer for the Southern Bay. We haven't had normal winds. No one who lives here long and who has sailed has been able to explain exactly how they're not normal, but they're not normal winds. You know, we've had a lot of shifts from the standard southerly wind into westerlies, for example. And apparently the southerly winds, the winds from the south, so blowing that direction over there, are normal. So it's all very interesting. The winds have been pretty light most of the time. For learning sailing, this is fantastic. For getting places in a hurry, it's not fantastic. You know, for messing around on boats, it's fine. You know, more wind does mean more air movement when it's hot, and that keeps you cooler, and cooler is better. So there's that to consider as well. What else is going on? You know, this isn't a place to talk about politics, so we're just going to skip that whole thing. Because as you know, if you listen to this soon after I post it, we've had quite the last couple of weeks, and, you know, stuff like the current presidential office declining re-election is not even the fourth most interesting thing to happen, which means it's been pretty freaking weird. So, you know, we accidentally gave $6 billion to another country that we forgot about. I'm not sure exactly how that accounting error happens. Just like all sorts of stuff is going on, right? And none of it matters on the water. That's kind of the point of this particular video, looking at the shore over there. None of this matters on the water. Now, one thing I would like to point out, and this is just a boat thing, because different people live aboard in different styles, you know, and there are broken down power boats behind me that people live on part of the year or all of the year in some cases, and the power boats are never going to move again. They're not going anywhere, and that's fine. It's totally fine. Keep the bottoms clean, make sure they don't sink, you know, check your through holes. I personally, I would part out the engines, get rid of the fuel tanks if they're never going to move again, but people always want to hope that they're going to get them fixed. I have no problems with the Bayliner 28 or a Carver 32 as a houseboat. I actually think it's kind of neat, and I would like to have one at some point if I'm going to spend a couple years in one spot and then have a really fun little dual setup of day sailors, something like 18 to 20 feet, little Typhoon or Kittiwake or something, and something like the Flying Monkey, something like a 25-foot Cape Dory, 27-foot Catalina, something as a coastal cruiser to do weekend and week-long trips in. And you think that's a lot, 3 boats, but in this case, what you're doing is you're maintaining only the houseboat systems of one boat, and then you have 2 boats that are very small and easy to maintain in terms of maintenance, like lines and standing rigging and everything. And I would ideally actually go smaller than the Catalina 27. Really, a Cape Dory 25 would be fine for weekend to month-long cruises with 2 people and a dog. You know, something smaller. The thing about something smaller is something smaller that is half-decked or has a cuddy cabin, what powerboaters call a cuddy cabin, you know, that has sail and oar capabilities would be just a lot of fun for areas like this. You know, you can overnight too, but look, there's a thing down there. You know, there's another little finger off the branch of the Yakamako, and you can get down there and you can anchor there. It's legal. Now, you can't see this in the video, but there's a couple crab pots set up in the middle, kind of specifically to make sure that people can't do anything. And it's only 3 feet deep, with a tidal variation of about 1.5 feet here. That's, you know, we're in an estuary, so the tides are a little not like ocean tides. You can't get much in there and anchor and hang out, but you know, a Typhoon, a little 18 or 20-foot Alberg design with a full keel that only draws 18 inches or even draws 2 feet, I'll go in there. No problem. It doesn't matter if it grounds out at low tide. It's a full keel, and you're probably not even going to tip. You're probably just going to sink in the mud about 3 inches. This is, after all, a river system. You know, you come down here, and it goes kind of aiming you under the boat to the south. It goes, you know, another half mile or so. And then out this way, you go around the point, and you've got 4 miles until you're out in the bay proper. You know, you've got 3 or 4 more fingers of the Yakamako, and then there's another river going up if you go around the point instead of going to Kinsale. And there's little marinas. Now, the little marinas aren't usable for much of anything. This one, the marina that's right here, is very usable. They have transient docks. They have services. They have, you can even schedule like a ride to the airport if you're a cruiser. And we've helped with that. So, you know, there's a lot going on here. Even though it does not have a restaurant or a bar, but there's barbecue facilities and there's events that happen. There's actually scheduled events every couple of weeks in the summer. But you go up north and then west, and there's Kinsale, which is kind of a rebranded trust fund hippie marina. It has very little in the way of actual services. I'm not even, I think they might have fuel. Their docks themselves claim to have electrical and water, but, you know, I had, the Flying Monkey started there, and the electrical was bare wires on a pole, and I wasn't ready to trust that, like, at all. You know, you could wire into the AC, but man, that's not safe. I'm just not going to go there. Their showers are set up for a very limited visiting population. The bathrooms are good. The clubhouse is really nice, and you know they sell clubhouse memberships for the clubhouse and the pool. You know, and they're trying to be a community center for a very small town that is kind of halfway between dying and becoming a remote tech worker place. Like, it's all very, very strange and mixed up, but it has no infrastructure, and this has basically become the thing to do for that part of the neck, the northern neck of Virginia. And it's great, but the fact that you have trust fund hippies running it means it's not very good as a marina. You know, she's the owner. She has figured out transient slips, and she's figured out a price structure for transient and then transient liveaboard, which is much more expensive, because apparently the idea is that people are going to cruise their boat here and then jump off their boat and go stay in $200 a night hotels for months on end, or more expensive Airbnbs, because there are no cheap Airbnbs out here. And I don't really understand the model, but it's not a sailor's marina. It's not a boater's marina. It's a great place for people who live in that part of the river, that part of the Yacomico, to run up to the bar that is open for a couple hours on the weekends and have a drink and talk to their neighbors. It's a great place to have a jet ski drop off. You know, they've got your trailerable power boat. It's a great place to have a small center console fishing boat. It's not a great place to try to work on your boat. It's not a great place to sail in or out of. It's not horrible to sail in or out of, but it's not a marina in any traditional sense. There's no boat culture. There's no sailing culture. There's no powerboat culture. It's not there. You know, there's a sailing association that meets there 2 or 3 times a year, but it's not nothing, you know. As opposed to down here, which actually has a yacht club that most people who get a slip and spend any time here end up joining. It's not a very restrictive, frou-frou, yuppie, trust fund, hippie kind of yacht club. It's just a yacht club. A lot of fishermen join the yacht club. And it's a great way to have parties and barbecues. And it's kind of old school, like the actual old school block party style. Let's see what else. South of us, you've got Cone River, which is an interesting little marina that has a reasonable number of slips, a strict anti-stay-on-your-boat policy. The owner is an Italian guy, and he hates people sleeping on their boats. You come, you get on your boat, you go for a day sail, you come back, and you leave. He's been forced, kind of by the market and people's expectations, to allow people to sleep on their boats on the weekends. And he's very specific. Like, you get Friday night, you get Saturday night. You do not sleep on your boat any other day. They're also a haul-out yard. Very good haul-out. Very inexpensive haul-out. And a DIY, do-it-yourself, service yard. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to sleep on your boat or in your RV or anywhere on site while you're working on a boat. So it's useless. It's 2 hours from the nearest town that you could call a town. That would be either Fredericksburg or Gloucester. I mean, 2.5 hours, actually, because it's 2 hours to the place that's half an hour away from Cone River Marina. And so it's a nightmare to actually consider working on your boat there. There are 2 hotels that are close enough within your 45-minute drive range, and a couple of campgrounds that are within an hour. But you're talking anywhere from $75 to $300 a night to stay so that you can work on your boat in a do-it-yourself yard, and it's just not great. Basically, it is a dead boat storage facility. They do, let's see, that's where we pulled Seven Bells out of, and they do at most 2 haul outs a week in season, and that's not a lot of boatyard activity. I'm going to tell you, that's not a lot. And, you know, the crazy Italian guy who owns it, his justification is he doesn't want people to pee or poop. He does not like maintaining septic systems. He doesn't like septic systems. He doesn't think they're appropriate. And the state of Virginia has not seen fit to give him a sewer line. So he just hates people. Whatever. You know, it's a really weird thing that there are so many. You know, I'm just talking about 3 of at least 18 small marinas out here on the northern neck where if you had a little bit more boat culture, because everything's more accessible by boat than it is by road. If you had a little more culture and you had a little bit more marina, I don't know, marina culture? I don't know what to call it. If you had a little bit more of standard marina practices out here, you would be thriving with boats. The prices are more reasonable than most of the marinas up north towards Annapolis or down south towards Norfolk. There is a lot of space available. All of the marinas have space. There's a lot of room for water taxis, for deliveries. There's a lot of stuff that you can do out here on the water if the marinas were run by people who wanted boats and boaters. And they seem to not actually want boats or boaters. And it's very odd. You know, it's not just the liveaboard thing. That's always a big concept. It's not just the liveaboard thing, though. There's more to it than that. There is cruise aboard. There is people staying for the week in the summer on their summer vacation. There's all this stuff that people really try to push you out of in the marinas in this area, this whole northern neck area. And that applies almost as much to Deltaville and as much to Reedville as it does to, you know, these little places, Kinsale and Cone and such. And it's very strange because it goes against what you would expect to see people trying to do. Like, you want the boats and the boaters and the people in the business, but you just basically kick everybody off and kick everybody out because you don't want them here. And that is a very strange model. Kind of crazy, and I expect it to change. I do expect it to change. This is just too pretty. It's too pretty to stay this way. So, that's it. Have a good cup of coffee.